Imagine you're interviewing for a product manager role at YouTube. Everything's going great until they hit you with this. What would you do if you were asked to take on a task completely outside of your job description? It's a curveball and it's a test because even when the work is outside of your scope, the way you respond still needs to reflect how you think as a product manager. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly how I'd approach this question with flexibility and intention. Also, show you how to ground your answer in product thinking, cross functional collaboration, and impact. So, even when you're working outside the lines, you're still playing within your role. Let's jump in. Let's imagine our fake interviewer, Sue, asks us this question. Sue, before diving in, I'd like to ask a few clarifying questions. Is the task focused on an internal initiative, external initiative, or both? I'd also want to know, is the goal to lead this task end to end or simply be a support to this broader or larger task? Have I worked with the stakeholders before on this task? Yes or no? And then, is there a specific timeline for this task? Specifically, is it 1 week, 1 month, 1 quarter? Okay. A few items we might want to consider before solving are: we want to look at stakeholder alignment, product influence, risk management. Definitely, we want to be thinking about creator trust, creating internal visibility. Then we're going to have to think about change management. Then, how are we communicating the information? What's our time allocation? What's our execution support look like? And then we always want to be thinking about long term value. And so, before solving, let's make a few assumptions. I'd assume that leadership has asked us to maybe co develop a new policy toolkit for YouTube Shorts creators whose content was maybe removed or downranked due to community guideline violations. And this is something that is typically owned by policy, trust, and safety teams, definitely not product managers. And this initiative is definitely not on the Shorts roadmap, but it came in response to maybe some creator backlash that we're seeing online, maybe on X, Reddit, or both. And this project has no dedicated engineering support. So my role is more of a coordinator. I'm trying to communicate and problem solve more than anything else. Let's say 2 month timeline to have this toolkit built in YouTube Creator Studio where creators can access it with the goal of improving creator trust and lowering just the sheer volume of appeals that are coming in. So I think based on those assumptions, a good starting point would be discussing stakeholder alignment and internal visibility. But is there another area you'd like to focus on first? Okay, given that this is pretty far outside of traditional PM duties, particularly since it's touching policy, legal, and our public reputation, the first thing I'd want to do is align with stakeholders around what success actually looks like and getting internal buy in. Because this isn't a product launch. And there's a risk that anytime it's not a product launch, it could be deprioritized or fall through the cracks. So I definitely want to create just kind of a lightweight project charter. We definitely want to clarify the problem we're solving, which is probably high creator confusion and appeals volume, our desired outcome, which is absolutely fewer unnecessary appeals and increased trust, and an overview of what that output might be, whether that's dynamic messages, transparency explainer videos, etc. Those are some things we'll want to focus in on in our answer. And then next, I'd set up one to ones with policy, trust and safety, and the legal leads to gather inputs and identify challenges early on. We might assume maybe creators want more transparency, but legal might push back on that and say, hey, we're being too transparent. And this is where, as a PM, I need to lean into these other critical stakeholders. And then once I've understood their risk tolerance, I'll socialize a few low risk items. Maybe we create an FAQ template. Maybe we do create some short videos. We could even create context awareness and product banners. And rather than a deep integration into ML models or automated feedback systems, because this way we can build credibility without needing heavy eng support. And then obviously to keep my team in the loop, I would present what I'm doing in my next team meeting, speaking of the benefits and how it serves strategic goals like creator retention and trust. And even if this doesn't work, I could lead to product features. It could lead to better alignment across trust and safety and product, something that would be valuable for high risk product areas like YouTube Shorts. Okay, let's pause. We could focus a little bit more on stakeholder alignment and internal visibility, or we could focus on creator trust and communication. Do you have a preference? Okay, let's just assume we've aligned those stakeholders and secured buy in. Then we got to start to design the actual creator facing output in a way that builds trust without creating new confusion or policy risk. And since I'm not a policy expert, I'd frame my role as more of a translator, turning vague policy terms and back end items into something that's maybe a little bit more digestible. So I'd start with an audit of our current messaging that we're sending out to creators and the stuff they receive when their shorts are either removed or suppressed. Are the messages generic? Do we use jargon like spam, deceptive practices, or misleading data? That's what we'll likely need to fix right away. Then I need to partner with UX writers and the creator support team to draft maybe 3 to 4 more focused explainer modules slash videos. So, like what happened, why it matters, maybe like what you can do, and we test this with creators via our UXR studies in the US and India, because those are our two largest shorts markets. And because creators often feel like the algorithm is a little bit of a black box, I'd also propose including confidence ranges or flags when something was likely downranked for borderline violations. And this would be without revealing any sensitive enforcement logic. Again, maybe legal has pushback on our transparency. So, for example, our systems flag this video as potentially violating our spam policy. We recommend reviewing your video's title and or hashtags. So I'd push for a multifaceted approach with kind of the PM mindset. So like in product pop-ups, maybe some email templates, and a YouTube Studio dashboard explainer section, ideally with videos. And this kind of communication would hopefully build a little bit of empathy with our creators and prevent escalation, especially on platforms like X and Reddit. And even though it's not feature development, it's absolutely kind of in my wheelhouse as a PM to design how information flows across teams and products to really serve our user base. At this point, I think it makes sense to focus on talking about success metrics or outcomes, unless there's anything else you'd like to discuss first. Okay, to measure my value when working on a task outside of my typical PM responsibilities, I define both quantitative and qualitative metrics in collaboration, again, with trust and safety, creator support, and the UXR team. And this might include key metrics like reduction in the number of appeals submitted, improvement in creator trust scores, which we would measure via ongoing surveys, and then good open and click through rates for our creator emails or that in product explainer videos that we've created. And then lastly, we just want our creators to be able to find the answers without having to escalate. That saves us time and money. And for long term impact, I'd propose an internal dashboard tracking these metrics over time, and we could segment them by creator tiers: new, long standing, top creators, etc. We could look at geography, we could look at policy type. And then lastly, we'd want to do a quarterly review to ensure the toolkit is being updated as policies evolve. And if the toolkit's really effective, it may later become a template for other YouTube video types, including maybe even long form content, YouTube lives, etc. And I'd advocate for embedding this process into our broader roadmap for improving creator communications. Ultimately, by tracking these outcomes and showing leadership that even non core work can move the ecosystem health metrics, we can increase both team credibility and cross functional influence. Okay, I think we've hit a good stopping point, but I'm happy to discuss any of the concepts that we've already discussed or ones that we haven't discussed. We didn't really get a ton into product influence, risk management, change management, execution support, or even just how we're mapping out time allocation. Happy to dive into any of those areas in more detail if you like. As always, these answers on YouTube, these hypothetical answers are long. We are assuming some really good engagement from our interviewer, which will allow us to provide multiple solutions. And when you think about the goal, when you get interview questions that stretch you outside of the core role, just keep one thing in mind. It is so important to show that you will still approach it from the perspective of the position you are interviewing for. It will make it easier for you and easier for your interviewer to follow along. Good luck.